should you really anticipate losses in advance? Isn't it better to do your job and hope for the best? I'm David Stiernholm, and in this week's episode of the Struktör podcast Done, I will show you a method for improving your situation through pessimism. But first, are you using OneNote, Planner, and To-Do for the right things? They all have great features, but for three completely different purposes. I will guide you to use the right tool for the right thing in a recent post on the Struktör blog. You'll find a link there in the show notes. Why paint the devil on the wall before it's gone to hell? What's the point of describing something as a failure long before it has happened? Well, to find things you can do to succeed better and avoid what you want to avoid happening. In an article published in Harvard Business Review 2007, that I'll link to in the show notes, psychologist Gary Klein introduces a method he calls pre-mortem. Unlike the opposite, post-mortem, when an investigation is conducted to find out the cause of something after the fact, like an autopsy, a pre-mortem involves imagining that something has gone wrong and searching for possible reasons why it happened, even though it hasn't happened yet. Klein argues that by conducting a pre-mortem at the beginning of a project participants can identify potential mistakes early on, counteract them, and succeed more effectively. You can also do this with your structure to avoid running into situations in your work that you would rather avoid. Do this. First, choose a situation or event that you have experienced in your work that you want to avoid experiencing again. I like to have good foresight when it comes to having my weekly newsletter ready, but sometimes I don't manage to do it and end up rushing at the end more than I like. That's why I chose that situation for my pre-mortem just now. So I imagined myself sitting and working to finish the weekly newsletter, and it was urgent, and that's not pleasant. If you want to use pen and paper as support, as I did, describe your chosen event on the right side of a blank sheet. Now, think of possible reasons why your situation or event happened. Write each reason directly to the left of your description of the unwanted event, as if they happened before on a timeline, since you're pretending that the terrible thing has happened and you're looking back. In my pre-mortem example, one reason was that earlier in the week I prioritized other tasks over working on the newsletter. Each reason, of course, has its cause, so think about why each reason you found happened. You can note these causes to the left of the reasons, directly to the left of your description of the defeat. Perhaps you'll notice that this is similar to a classic 5 whys exercise, so look for reasons as far as you can handle right now, and you'll get to the root cause that you can be satisfied with. You could use my 5 whys template to do the exercise if you'd like to. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And now, it's time to avoid this happening in the future. For each root cause, come up with something concrete you can do to prevent it from happening again. In my pre-mortem, I found 4 concrete things I can do, one of which is to prioritize working on the newsletter during the day, even if it doesn't directly involve interacting with my clients, which I tend to prioritize highly. To tie it all together, note each concrete task on the far left of the sheet at the end of each strand of causes that eventually lead to the event you want to avoid on the far right. And finally, complete the solution tasks immediately, or add them to your to-do list so they don't just get forgotten on the sheet. Because if you do a pre-mortem before what you want to avoid has happened, you reduce the risk of it happening because you can take concrete actions early on to prevent it. If you do this for more and more unwanted situations that can shape your workday, you gradually get your work situation more and more in line with what you want. Have you done a pre-mortem exercise like this in any context? How did it go? And what was the effect for you? Please write to me and tell me. The address is, as always, david@stiernholm.com. I'm curious to hear. Thanks for today and see you again next week.